Yo, what is up? We are back. The Longevity Game Podcast. Thanks for coming, guys. Thanks for coming.
The Longevity Game Podcast is on the air. All right.
Hope everybody's doing well. No pre-workout today. We have a great podcast today. We have a great episode. We're going to be talking about some really cool things. Thank you. Thank you for coming back. Welcome back to the Longevity Game Podcast, where we talk about how to fight off Father Time, live longer, perform stronger, and feel unstoppable. And that's what we do here. I'm your host, Michael Ward. I'm the founder of Next Level TRT, a longevity and performance medicine practice franchise. And if you're a resident of both Texas or Nebraska, schedule a no-cost consultation to get your questions answered and see how you can level up your health and feel your very best. All right. And today we're diving into topics, one of my favorite topics, peptides. My gosh, we're talking regeneration, performance, fat loss, and mitochondria, the trifecta of human optimization. I got my coffee here. SpongeBob. My kids got me this. My gosh. I mean, how long has SpongeBob been on? A decade? Longer? 15 years? I have a 28-year-old, and I believe that, I have 5 boys. I feel like I've been watching SpongeBob for decades. Anyway, I got the voices down, and I'm not going to do them, but I do, and it's pretty hilarious. I believe that if SpongeBob, the guy who plays as SpongeBob, his voice ever went out, or he was like, I'm done, I need somebody to fill in, I could do it, and nobody would ever know. That's how good it is. Anyway, I am getting locked and loaded here. We're going to have a great episode. I prescribe a lot of peptides. Let me see I guess the ones that I prescribe the very most target repair and regeneration, and there are some that I prescribe that help build lean muscle and cause visceral fat loss. Those are the ones that I prescribe the very most, and I have to say it's absolutely incredible. On occasion, I see people online, like influencers who talk about, these are supposed to be, scientists. These are supposed to be healthcare professionals who have gone to school for this stuff, like I have. And some of them say, well, I don't know about peptides. I don't know if they work or not. Well, I mean, let's look at the science. I mean, there are so many there's over 400 different peptides that are used in clinical research, in clinical practice. And I mean, they work really good. And the studies show how good they really work. So when I hear somebody, I'm not going to mention any names, but whenever I hear somebody say that, yeah, I'm not sure if they work or not. Well, let's just look at the literature, let's not guess, right? Because it's absolutely incredible. Some of the results that I've seen in my very own patients, So let's get started. We're going to talk first about the regenerators, BPC-157 and TB-500. These two are powerhouses. I will use BPC-157 on someone who has, some tendinitis, maybe a partial tear or something like that, But I will throw in TB-500 if it's severe, right? The more severe, the more that I will add, right? So if it's if it's just something, nagging, I'll throw in some BPC-157. But if it's worse than that, if it's long-term damage or a severe tear, or maybe they're just recovering from surgery, BPC-157 and TB-500 is a great option. So let's clear something up. These are not antimicrobial peptides, all right? regeneration. They're regenerative peptides. And so just keep that in mind. They help the body rebuild itself, plain and simple. All right. So BPC-157, also known as body protective compound, is a 15 amino acid fragment. And I should mention this. We should start at a little higher level. Let's back up just a little bit. What are peptides? For people who aren't even really sure what peptides are, I think this is important. So peptides, if you think, what's a protein? A protein is a compound that has greater than 100 amino acids in a row, okay? A peptide is also something that has a number of amino acids in a row, just a smaller amount, right? So if you have a peptide 2 to 50, that's called a peptide. 51 to 100 is a polypeptide, and then greater than 100 is a protein, okay? So just to clear that up, basically when you take a peptide, it is just a sequence of amino acids that are arranged in an order that stimulates your body to do something that it already does, just better. Okay. Okay. So now we got that out of the way. You know what a protein is? Peptides are just tiny, tiny, tiny proteins, and they're arranged in a way that cause your body to do something. Okay. All right. So let's get back to it. So BPC-157, or body protective compound, is a 15 amino acid fragment derived from the gastrointestinal lining. This is one of the only peptides that you can actually take as an encapsulated form, because it's derived from the gut, right? From the inside of the stomach acid, right? Gastric juice, right? And so it can tolerate that really harsh environment of the stomach, and that's why it can come in either encapsulated form or injectable form. I have to say, though, anecdotally, I've seen the injectable form work way better than the encapsulated form for healing up things. However, if you have like inflammatory bowel issues, the encapsulated form is probably a better option. So think of it as like your body's internal contractor, right? And it's repairing the tissue damage that you didn't even know that you were carrying, right? A lot of the times, because we make BPC-157 in the gut. We just don't make it in sufficient enough amounts to do what it does in those higher amounts, right? Which is almost miraculous, right? So here's how it works. BPC-157 boosts angiogenesis. And angiogenesis just means new blood vessel formation, right? So it helps to grow new blood vessels through growth factors like FGF2 and VEGF. Okay, so I bet you're wondering what the hell those are, or what I just said there. FGF2 stands for fibroblast growth factor 2. And this primarily works by stimulating the proliferation and migration of endothelial cells. And the endothelial layer of your blood vessels is the innermost layer of your blood vessels. So it works by stimulating the proliferation and migration of endothelial cells, and is involved in a variety of cellular processes, includes cell growth and differentiation. VEGF, or VEGF, stands for vascular endothelial growth factor, and it's a key signaling protein. And this especially promotes the growth of new blood vessels by stimulating the growth or proliferation of endothelial cells, similar to FGF2, in response to low oxygen levels. All right. So that means better oxygen delivery, better nutrient delivery to damaged tissues, right? And it also helps with collagen synthesis, okay? Extracellular matrix remodeling. So this also causes, reduction of inflammation by turning down those nasty cytokines, those inflammatory mediators like IGF-1, interleukin-1, tumor necrosis factor, those things. So bottom line, it just helps to heal tendons, ligaments, and even the gut or the GI tract faster. All right. Let's get a little refill on this here. Yeah, it would be cool if I had somebody else that could be talking when I'm taking a drink of my coffee, so there's no silence.
Bruh.
Anyway, it also, let's see, so let's talk about TB-500. TB-500 is a thymosin peptide. It's derived from the thymus gland. TB-500 also stands for thymosin beta 4, right? This is the ultimate cellular first responder. This one's about actin-driven cell migration, right? So this literally helps your cells move into position to build and rebuild damaged tissue. It also drives angiogenesis, very similar to the BPC-157, using VEGF2 expression and FGF2. All right, we've seen TB-500 used experimentally in everything from muscle tears all the way up to cardiac repair. And it has been shown to be incredible, you know, in those things. And so while both are considered research-only compounds, which means they're not FDA approved, the data from regenerative medicine circles is nothing short of miraculous. All right, together, they're like Batman and Robin for tissue recovery. Okay, one handling the vascular and collagen side, the other optimizing cell mobility and anti-fibrotic effects. All right, so you know, if you have some significant injuries or just some significant inflammation, whether that be gastrointestinal inflammation or just inflammation from just working out a lot or just injuries, whatever, you know, if you have, I've seen people who are on chronic opioid treatments, you know, and opioids are a whole different level. They're really Band-Aids, right? They just help deal with pain, and very much needed in a lot of people who have chronic pain, like degenerative disc disease or, you know, chronic back issues, chronic knee problems, chronic shoulder problems. They just, you know, I mean, it can be very debilitating and very painful and can make life worth not living almost, right? It seems like that. I mean, imagine if you were in chronic pain all the time. It would be horrible. It'd be depressing. There's no quality of life, right? These peptides, I've seen people come off opioids because these peptides do the job. And then they don't have, you know, all the side effects that come with opioid use, right? And so it's pretty awesome. Pretty awesome. So let's shift gears. We're going to go to the next type of peptides. These are anabolic amplifiers, right? These are the ones that I was telling you about that stimulate muscle growth. They also can stimulate collagen production, and they cause visceral adiposity, lipolysis, you know, or fatty acid metabolism. And these peptides, well, there's a handful of them, but then let's talk about the ones that are most popular right now. The Sermorelin, that's probably one of the most popular ones. And the funny thing about Sermorelin is I see these ads on social media, and these dudes in these ads are completely jacked, like highly vascular. They're not taking Sermorelin, all right? I mean, they may be taking Sermorelin, but that's not how they got to look like that. Sermorelin ain't going to do it, right? But it's pretty funny because, you know, that's how they're marketing this stuff, that if you get on Sermorelin, you are going to be the most jacked you've ever been. I mean, people who are in the gym and that see this, they know, right? They know that's not Sermorelin, right? It might be some of it may be Sermorelin, but very unlikely. So we're going to talk about Sermorelin. We're going to talk about Ipamorelin, which is better than Sermorelin, like a lot. And then we're going to talk about IGF-1 LR3, which is the most anabolic peptide I've ever seen and has a crazy long half-life. So let's talk about it. These are called growth hormone secretagogues. These peptides don't replace growth hormone. Okay, this isn't like taking human growth hormone. All right, which is dangerous, and you should never do that. I honestly, I'm completely against it. There is a reason why somebody would need human growth hormone, but there are better ways, safer ways to do it, and human growth hormone ain't it, right? These peptides are they're very similar to the effects that you could see with human growth hormone, but they're not. They stimulate your body, your own body, to make more growth hormone. And this is important because as you age, you make a lot less growth hormone. Like in your 50s, you probably make about 50% less growth hormone than you did in your 20s, right? And so taking a peptide, an anti-aging peptide, which is what these are considered, to boost growth hormone production in the body is super, super appealing, right? For people who are getting up in age, And so they just encourage your body to make more of the growth hormone naturally, which is awesome. So let's talk about first Sermorelin. Sermorelin acts like a growth hormone releasing hormone analog, right? It stimulates your pituitary to release more growth hormone and in turn more IGF-1, which is the key driver of anabolic repair and metabolism. Sermorelin is really, really short acting, like in about 10 to 20 minutes, all right? It's clean, it's predictable, right? It's the first of all the growth hormone secretagogues. And there is some information out there that shows that it could negatively affect cortisol levels as well as prolactin levels, right? And so if it's spiking prolactin, if you're not on testosterone, prolactin can inhibit or slow the release of luteinizing hormone. And luteinizing hormone directly stimulates the testes to make testosterone. And so if your prolactin is very high, it can indirectly impair your ability to produce optimal levels of testosterone. So you just got to keep that in mind. The next peptide is Ipamorelin. And this is one of my personal favorites. I love Ipamorelin. It's fantastic. And I like to combine it with another growth hormone secretagogue, CJC 1295. And so it mimics ghrelin. Ghrelin, now think ghrelin. When you hear ghrelin, think growling, right? Ghrelin is the hunger hormone, but without these side effects of older peptides like the Sermorelin, right? It's longer acting, so it roughly lasts 2 to 3 hours, and it's gentle on cortisol and prolactin, right? You won't see those spikes that you can on Sermorelin. You can think of it as like a smoother, steadier GH pulse that supports better sleep, which is pretty amazing. This peptide actually can cause you to sleep better than you slept in a long time. You're going to have faster recovery because you are getting better sleep and because it stimulates collagen production. And, if you have some nagging injuries, this peptide can help. And it increases lean mass hypertrophy, lean muscle mass hypertrophy, or lean muscle gains, right? Which is awesome because as you age, you lose a lot of muscle. About 10 to 20% of your muscle mass is lost per decade after you turn 40. And so it's pretty important, right? And could that be because you're making less growth hormone? That's one of the reasons. You're making less growth hormone. You're making less testosterone. You don't have as much mitochondrial efficiency as you did back in the day. You are not making as much ATP as a result of that. You don't have enough NAD plus like you used to. There's lots of things that are against us, but the growth hormone piece is pretty important. So for those who really want to go straight to the target, IGF-1 LR3. This one is a direct analog of IGF-1 itself, meaning it bypasses GH and goes straight to building tissue and improving metabolism. It's a long-acting, powerful, and it's being explored in longevity medicine for muscle preservation and anti-frailty effects. This sucker is amazing. And if you're a diabetic, because if you worry about, if you have insulin insensitivity or you're type 2 diabetic, these growth hormone secretagogues can affect your blood sugar negatively, depending on how high your IGF-1 levels get, For some reason, and I'm not sure what the science is, but IGF-1 LR3 does not spike your glucose, So it does not affect A1C from what I've understand, from what I've read and what I've understood, looking into growth hormone secretagogues as a clinic owner who prescribes peptides. It does not affect your glucose the way that some of these other ones can. So pretty awesome, IGF-1 LR3. Now remember, these peptides, these are just tools, right? They work best when you combine those with proper nutrition, with resistance training, and whenever you give yourself time to recover, right? Peptides are going to work the best. And when I was younger, way younger, before I got into medicine, I always thought that was like a cop out, like take this supplement, but don't take it and not work out, or don't diet, make sure you're eating correctly, getting the right nutrition, all these things. Well, because, you're going to see better results, and I was always a little cynical when it came to those kind of suggestions, because I thought, well, what if I didn't add the supplement and I just did all those things? Could I have the same results? Well, specifically for these peptides, you won't. You will not, because the way that you stimulate hypertrophy is by stressing the muscle. However, the more growth hormone you have gives you a better response when you do stress the muscle, right? So it's like anabolic steroids. You can take anabolic steroids all day and not go to the gym, and you won't see any results at all when it comes to your muscles, right? It's not going to help. You have to be in the gym. You have to be working out. You have to be optimizing your protein, because you have to give yourself the building blocks in order to build muscle. All these things count. I've never been as strong and as lean and as big as I am whenever I prioritize my recovery, my sleep. So that's super important too. You got to get the rest. You got to get the essential building blocks to build muscle. You have to be burning calories, in order to lose fat. I mean, there's all these things work in symphony, in concert with each other. And so when you add peptides, you want to do all those things because you want the maximum return on your investment, right? And so that's why it's important to do all the things. These are a tool that you add to your toolbox, which is your workout regimen, your exercise regimen, right? Okay, I'm done ranting. But anyway, the last bit we're going to cover here, this is the last little bit of this episode where we're going to cover probably peptides you've either not heard of before or you don't think about them as important. And these are mitochondrial peptides. We call them mitochondrial masters, MOTS-C and SS-31, or elimipretide. These peptides are integrally important in longevity. All right, so because all regeneration and anabolic signaling in the world won't help if your mitochondria aren't firing on all cylinders. And this is why I was talking about, as you age, growth hormone isn't the only thing, right? Testosterone isn't the only thing that's holding you back. Low testosterone, low growth hormone. Mitochondrial efficiency is huge in your ability to live longer, healthier, younger lives, right? If that makes sense. So let's talk about, let's meet MOTS-C and SS-31, the mitochondrial peptides. MOTS-C is often called the exercise peptide because it's produced by your mitochondria and works through the AMPK pathway. And I've talked about this in other episodes. The AMPK pathway is a longevity pathway, and it stands for adenosine monophosphate activated protein kinase pathway. And that's the same metabolic switch activated by fasting and exercise. It increases insulin sensitivity. I'm talking about MOTS-C. It increases insulin sensitivity, which is awesome. It boosts fat oxidation, which is also awesome. And it improves energy efficiency. So, I mean, doesn't that sound amazing? Like, it causes you to have more energy. It helps your body to regulate glucose better. And it helps you to lose weight. And it makes you feel amazing. That's awesome. Why isn't everybody not taking this peptide? I actually do take this peptide. And you take it 3 times a week for the first month, and then you only take it once a week thereafter, right? It's incredible. It's an incredible peptide. And so I don't know why a lot of people don't think about mitochondrial peptides. Maybe because they're not sexy, right? I mean, growth and repair and regeneration, that's sexy, right? Especially whenever you have to have it because you're just feeling awful all the time because maybe of an injury or surgery or you just tweak something, right? So that's sexy, right? What about the growth hormone secretagogues? Man, those are super sexy because what are they going to do? They're going to cause you to have more muscle. They're going to cause you to be leaner and meaner, and it's going to be awesome, right? But mitochondria peptides, they just don't sound very sexy. But if you look at all the things that they do, man, they are sexy. There is some sexiness here, right? So let's talk about that. So if again, essentially, MOTS-C, it helps you your body act younger, stronger, more metabolically flexible. Exercise itself increases MOTS-C. All right, so this might explain why working out literally reverses metabolic aging, right? Because when you exercise, it does increase MOTS-C production in your body, right? And like I said in the beginning, peptides don't do anything extra. They don't bring anything extra to the table except causing your body to do something it already does, just better and more efficiently. All right, so that's MOTS-C, yeah. And so let's see. We also have SS-31. That's what we're talking about, right? This is a mitochondrial peptide as well. It just works differently. Where MOTS-C works on the software, SS-31 works on the hardware, right? So SS-31, also known as elamipretide, elamipretide. And I just say SS-31. I'm not used to saying that. This peptide doesn't just support mitochondria, it protects them, right? It binds to a key lipid called cardiolipin. And cardiolipin is a structural component of the mitochondrial membrane. And whenever it binds to that cardiolipin, it causes that structural component of the mitochondria to be stronger, right? It keeps the structure intact, and it helps to prevent oxidative stress. SS-31 also, it helps your heart, which, think about your heart. It needs mitochondrial efficiency, right? Because what's it doing? It's beating 24 hours a day. It's always working, right? And it's kind of like whenever you take a statin drug, like Lipitor. You know, your heart always needs ATP, but statins deplete coenzyme Q10. And coenzyme Q10 is directly involved in generating ATP, the energy currency used by every cell in the body. And so if you don't take coenzyme Q10 and your statin drug, over time you're going to be depleting, or you're not going to be making enough ATP, and your heart isn't going to be strong enough to pump all that through, you know. And there's been a pretty interesting chart that I've seen. Whenever they created statin medications, there was a pretty steep slope in congestive heart failure cases. And congestive heart failure just means a weaker heart because it's not able to pump enough blood through the lungs and throughout the body. And it's suggested that it's because of the fact that statins deplete coenzyme Q10, right? And so the literature suggested 200 milligrams of coenzyme Q10 a day, you know, to help. Well, SS-31 is kind of like that, right? It helps to, again, reduce oxidative stress, to improve the structural integrity of mitochondria, thereby allowing them to be more efficient at making ATP, right? And so this is one of the ways it really helps the heart and even the brain function more efficiently by preserving mitochondrial integrity, right? So together, MOTS-C and SS-31 are like the pit crew and the engine protector of your cellular race car. One boosts fuel efficiency and the other keeps the engine from burning out, right? So they work so well together. And then if you were to add one thing onto it, which is not a peptide, it would be NAD+, which, you know, I mean, I think more and more people are finally coming around. NAD+ itself, you don't need to take NAD+. You can take NMN, which is nicotinamide mononucleotide, and NR, nicotinamide riboside, which are precursors to NAD+. And we have more literature on the beneficial effects of NAD as a result of using NR and NMN in oral form. And so this is something that you should know. You can actually get NMN these days. For a while, there was a drug company that was trying to prevent supplement manufacturers to produce NMN because they were going to use it to make some drugs, right? And so they were trying to make it very off limits and hard to get. And so recently, something happened. They were denied that petition or that claim, that request. And so now you can get NMN, the real stuff, again through supplementation. And I there is a way to get NAD plus by mouth. But really the only way that NAD plus is going to work is if you get liposomal NAD plus. In liposomal, if you know what a liposome is, remember when we were in science class, we talked about liposomes? These are little fatty bubbles, right? And so liposomes can pass through the cellular matrix, the lipid bilayer of your cells, and gets through there, so it can carry NAD plus into the cell using that liposomal delivery mechanism. So if you're going to get, and if you insist on buying NAD plus to help with ATP production and longevity, you want to get liposomal NAD. Otherwise, you can get the injectable form, but you're never going to be able to inject enough unless, and that stuff burns like fire. Like when you inject NAD plus, man, it is, it is hot. Okay. But it works, but you have to inject a lot of it, like every day, like it's 100 milligrams per milliliter. And so you'll literally, if you go to get an IV infusion of NAD plus, they're going to give you 500 milligrams up to 1,000 milligrams in one sitting, right? And so you'd have to inject every single day. Just take the liposomal NAD plus or the NMN and NR combination to help boost ATP production. Again, I'm digressing, but if we're talking about peptides and we're talking about MOTS-C and we're talking about SS-31, it only makes sense to add something that's also going to help boost ATP production and improve your NAD plus levels, which will allow you to do that, right? Yeah, and that's it, guys. So the final thoughts here, my final thoughts of today is longevity is about optimization, not just addition, right? So what's wild about all these peptides, BPC-157, TB-500, Sermorelin, Ipamorelin, IGF-1 LR3, MOTS-C SS-31, is that they don't override your biology, right? They re-educate your biology. Because as you age, you just become less efficient at doing these things. So they would just remind your cells what youth and recovery used to feel like and causes your body to upregulate, which is cool, right? I like peptides because most of the time you don't see any kind of side effects with peptides other than, injection site reactions. You might get, an allergic reaction to, some component of it. I've seen that. Some people get a little, red, blotchy whenever they inject. Some people have this flushing that happens that goes away just as quick as it comes. So, you can deal with that by reducing the dose, or maybe it just doesn't work for you and you have to, you just got to keep looking for something else that may work. But sometimes that happens, everybody is going to react differently to any medication. So it's just trial and error. You're just going to have to figure out. Nobody knows what they're allergic to until they find out that they're allergic to something, right? All these compounds are still under investigation. They're not FDA approved, and long-term human data is limited. But I've read study after study after study, and these peptides that I talked about today have been shown to be extremely safe. And so that said, they're opening doors to what would and could be the next evolution in regenerative and longevity medicine. By the way, I have links to all these things that I talked about today in the description at the very bottom. So if you want to cruise through those and check those out, there's some really, really great studies and some interesting things that you might find very beneficial for you personally. If you're feeling burnout, you're feeling sluggish, or like your recovery just isn't what it used to be, it's not your fault. Your biology just needs better instruction, just a little tweaking. So if today's episode lit a little spark for you, share it with somebody who's serious about living better, not just longer. And if you're ready to take control of your performance, your recovery, and your longevity, visit nextleveltrt.com to learn more about how we can help men and women optimize from the inside out. Also, don't forget to subscribe to the Longevity Podcast on Spotify or on YouTube. And if you could, drop a 5-star review. Man, if you're enjoying the content, that'd be awesome. It helps us to reach more people who want to level up their life. Until next time, remember, longevity isn't about adding years to your life. It's about adding life to your years. For contact, sponsorship, and press support, have questions or concerns about a particular topic or episode, just email us at hello@thelongevitygamepodcast.com. If you're interested in being a guest on the show, just email us at beaguest@thelongevitygamepodcast.com. Also, if you're interested in supporting or sponsoring the show, email us at sponsors@thelongevitygamepodcast.com. All right, guys. So until then, I really appreciate you guys hanging out. Have a great week, and we will see you next week on the Longevity Game Podcast. You guys take care.